Sherry took a detour into a house cleaning business for a few years to help her husband through college, and then they moved to Memphis. Sherry, at long last, began to feel her dream of buying rental houses. After the 12th house, she got a real estate license and then put her own house buying on hold and helped dozens of other newbie investors build their portfolios. Sherry started working with Crylight in 2000, and at Randy Zurgeon, she began her own company 10 years ago. This gave her the flexibility to assist families in different ways that were not allowed within the confines of a more traditional real estate brokerage that oversaw hundreds of realtors. This allowed for some pro bono work that was dear to her heart, that has evolved into a different beast these days. But today she will be talking about what she started her business foundation with: real estate investors, and helping real estate investors build their portfolio while keeping as much tax burden off of them as possible when they sell. Let's give it up for Sherry Harbur.
Thank you. Oh, wow. We have a lot of visitors. So yes, we did start in real estate, and it's really fun to go to work every day and just love what you do. It's not really work. It's kind of fun. It's fun to help people. So we do a lot of different things. We, with our investors, we help them buy homes, and that means single family homes up to multifamily. Anything that people live in is what we work with our investors. But a lot of things we sell to them's already got tenants in them. So we buy portfolios for our investors. We help them buy that. Already got a tenant, it's just kind of turnkey and moves right on. We also sell some commercial properties from time to time. Strip centers, shopping malls, those type of things have rent income as well. So we work with those too. There was a picture on there, right there. That's a real estate investment property.
Go to the next slide.
Is that one of your properties?
That's not one of mine,
One
but
we
I
sold.
sold it a couple of years ago to an investor.
Oops.
So we're going to talk today about 4 different ways you can save taxes when you sell. It's important that you buy investment properties correctly because you make money on the front end, but it's really important that when you sell them, you don't lose any money to taxes if you can avoid it. That other house was an investment property we sold. Well, it wasn't an investment, it was an owner occupied property that we sold, but we sold it to an investor. Their plan is to keep it for 5 years. They'll live in it for at least 2 of those. Then when they resell it, they get to take advantage of what our government has allowed for our exempt taxes for our owners that own property. So up to 500,000 profit, they can be exempt from paying taxes on that. This is some other investment properties we've sold over the years. This was the King's Sons and Daughters home. And when they built their new one, our investor bought this. He held it for 2 years. He cleaned it up. He did a few upgrades to it, and then he resold it. The one on the bottom, that investor bought, it had the old boiler system to heat the units. When he got his $18,000 gas bill for one cold winter month, he decided to put central heat and air in. So he did a bunch of upgrades to that. And he sold it in 5 years. But typically, the investors I work with buy and hold for a little while. And this one has kept his for 25 years. Go on. So Leanne and I went to see a house the other day. You might recognize that. This is kind of what an investor house looks like a lot of times when we go into them. And if you put them on the market like that, that's not going to sell very good, right, Pat? People can't see through the mess, but 4 hours later, on the next screen, you'll see what it looked like. And that was just using what was so that's kind of what we do sometimes just to clean it up. That's right. So how do our investors finance their properties? That's on the next screen. So most of my investors I'm seeing these days, and probably Trevor, you see the same thing, and Pat, is cash. Either cash they've inherited, cash they've saved up, but a lot of it is cash coming from a retirement account. When people are 59 and a half, a lot of times they roll those accounts over to a self-directed retirement account so that they can invest in real estate with that money. The next screen will kind of show you if you go and put that money roll it on into a Roth account. You have to pay taxes on it up front, but because you pay taxes up front, all the growth inside that account grows tax-free. If you resell the property, you don't pay capital gains on what the price has appreciated to. Don't pay capital gains on your rental income on that. So that is a huge way to avoid tax gains, 100%. The next way we're seeing our investors buy their properties is through bank loans. Joe Garner, are you watching the screen?
Oh, my goodness.
We go through banks. Joe's bank has investor loans, renovation loans. There's all kinds of loans out there that I've never even heard of before that she knows all about. And so a lot of people use traditional financing to get their mortgages. And the next way we get our loans is through private money lenders. Avalon Capital was here a few weeks ago and they talked about their program. It's typically short-term financing, but sometimes people say, I need to sell a house and I need out now. They can go to a short-term financing company, get the money that week and close on it. They can do the renovations and then they can turn around and refinance it. So this is just how they get their money, how they're buying the properties, again, buying it right. Another way that they get money to buy properties, we're not going to go into it in detail, but there's grant money out there to buy investment properties in certain neighborhoods. It is long, drawn out process. It's hard to work through it, so we're not going to talk about it. But the next way our investors buy properties is through a 1031 tax deferred exchange. Again, the government says we want people to invest in real estate, so we're going to offer them some perks by doing that. These are just some companies I use. I have brochures from them too, but the brochures get outdated really quick. So my recommendation is if you're interested in doing 1031 tax exchange, go to their websites because those are updated constantly and you'll have the latest news. Every time a tax law comes out, they change some things, so it's always different. The next screen kind of shows a little picture. If you do a 1031 tax deferred exchange, instead of going to the closing table and stopping, getting your proceeds and paying taxes, you get to defer around. You go around that and you just defer it into the next property. You buy the next property, and then if you sell that second property, you have to pay taxes unless you keep putting it into other properties. You can buy, these have to be like-kind purchases. So it's all different kinds of things you can use with this tax code. You can sell cows and buy cows. You can sell horses and buy horses. You can sell farm equipment, buy more farm equipment. You can sell any kind of real estate from single family homes, multifamily homes, industrial, retail. Those can all be rolled into any other kind of real estate. So we have a lot of flexibility on how we can use it within real estate. Traditionally, commercial realtors use it a lot. Residential realtors, not so much. I would say out of the 4,700 people we have that belong to the Memphis Area Association of Realtors, maybe 1% would even know what a 1031 exchange is. About right? Yeah.
Wow.
So, this is kind of how it works on the next screen. You own a property, which is called the relinquished property. You find a buyer for it, you sell it. The money does not come to you. It goes up to the qualified intermediary. They hold it until you find the replacement property, and then they pay it to theirs. So you don't see it. Once you sell your property, you have 45 days to identify the next property. You have 180 days from the time you sell yours until you close on the next one. So it's a pretty quick process, but it works good. There's other ways you can use the 1031 exchange as well. You can also, like in today's market, it's hard to find this replacement property. So you can find the replacement property first and you can do a reverse exchange. Or maybe the property you need is not going to be out there. You're a doctor and you need a special facility. We can do a build to suit for that replacement property. It's all different rules. It gets a little more complicated, but it can be done. So the next screen just kind of says that's the IRS's incentive is to, help you buy, but that's your second way to defer taxes. But there's a bonus that I didn't know about until this year because I had to live it. If you buy property and you want your family to inherit it and you die, while it's still in that, your family gets it tax-free. So it is a great estate planning tool. So as you're planning your estate and you know you want, your family wants your rental properties, if you have tax deferred into that, that was the way. There's the next guy.
I can clarify that if you like, it's part of step-that basis, typically you have to own a house. There are some other rules involved in this,
Right,
but basically what happens is the house, it is actually in your estate, could be used with the trust, one of the ways to do it. But it's your house basically, and it, once it goes up, give me an example, you buy a house that's coming down, so let's say for $1 million. And in this process, you can jump into $1 million for anything in the next 6 months. You can do it.
right. And what I was referring to was within an estate. But on the next slide, this is the call, the typical call that we'll get at the real estate office. Hey, I need to sell my investment property. And I start saying, oh, you want to sell one, you want to sell two, maybe they own 5. If they want to sell one, we talk about, you need to talk to your tax guy, but they want to know, what am I going to net? So we'd say, here's your sales price, here's your closing costs, here's what you might have to pay out for repairs, whatever. Here's your net, but you also have to pay taxes on this. So talk to your tax guy and make sure this is a good move for you right now. Sometimes when they're leaving the investment arena, they don't care. Just pay taxes. I'm sick of cleaning toilets or calling plumber or whatever. I want out, and that's fine. So they pay taxes and they move on. But for those that want to do a 1031, then we can go purchase them something else. And the next slide, when they call and they say, we want out and we want to sell everything together. If they're doing a 1031, we sell them as a package. It's difficult, but we do it because I can't get anybody in there to see them. They're tenant occupied. So we'll sell it as a package. But if they want to exit, they do not want to buy another property. We also have another way for them to help spread out their taxes. So here is where on the next screen is, this is like a typical conversation we would have with an investor. The phone rings and the investor says, hey, Sherry, I'm tired. I want out. Oh, hi, Randy. You want to sell your properties? So what do you got?
So this is gonna start going through and then just, you're gonna have to go out. You have to click each time to get another number that it's set up. Just tell me when. Okay, so in this case, I went and bought my house, and guys, these numbers are not really realistic. But I say that I went out and bought the house for $200,000 5. So it gives.
And before we go any further, yes, we have an accountant in the room, and yes, you've got financial planners, and you will talk to them. You will get exact numbers. This is for illustration only, so that's all. That's good.
So then, well, what's your market value today? Well, they
Well, I
can.
figured that out, Mr. Investor. You probably overpaid for them because today they're worth like 1.6 million. You have some capital gains there.
So next 600,000 capital gains.
Did you depreciate those out?
I did. That's not good. Yeah, need to appreciate them out over the last 27.5 years.
We both in there now. Okay, so at your taxable liability at the time of the sales, like 1.6 million, right?
So yeah, that's right, because I had them depreciated out, I have to pay tax on the whole thing.
So then the capital gains tax rate is gonna vary based on where your income is, and we're going off of your lowest number, like 15%. So on that, you're gonna have to pay Uncle Sam some money, about $240,000 out of that. And most of the time when I say to my investors, are you ready to do that? They'll say, no way. So on the next screen, we talk about where they are now. What's your rental income, Randy?
So I'm already about, I'm getting about 8,500 a month.
And you're paying some property taxes.
1,200 a month,
And maintenance
about 10%.
and property management too. So your actual income is about $5,500 a year
On
or
that,
month.
on those 5 homes, that's what I'm bringing.
So if we can show you a way, Randy, that you could become the bank and you still have the income, so you don't have to lose the income, would you be interested?
Sure.
Okay, so this is what you would typically hear owner financing. But owner financing is like, be careful with it, but this is like higher level. We're going to go to an underwriter. We're gonna get approval for the loan. We're gonna write up a real mortgage. We're gonna do things correctly, so the right clauses are in there. So if we do that, and again, for simplicity, we're going to do 100% financing. We're not even asking for any money down, but we would if we were doing real financing. We want 20% down or so to start this process. But if you did 100% loan, 1.6 million at 5% for 30 years, there's your loan income. So Randy, what's your property tax?
Well, it's 1,200. Oh,
Oh, no, you're the bank now. The buyer pays that. And maintenance and vacancy,
nothing.
property management fees.
Nothing.
So your actual income is what you get, minus loan service fees.
So what it shows is between me having those as a rental, me as becoming the bank, even at a very low interest rate, I can make 47,000 years more doing nothing.
So you good with that?
I'm good with
Okay. All right, so now we need to go to an amortization schedule and kind of show you, Randy, how it works.
So one more click. So what this is showing is that if I take this as just a 5% loan over 30 years, I'm gonna make 3.1 million on that property, not 1.6. So I made a whole lot more money over time by doing the financing versus just traditionally selling it and then paying that $240,000 to the government.
So Randy, before you get too excited, as your realtor, I need to let you know, they could sell this property at any time during that process.
They could. So if they do sell the if they do sell the loan, you just go ahead and click some more. See some more showing up there. So we've got a 30-year tax deferred. So what's going to end up happening here is I'm still going to pay that tax, but I'm paying it out over 30 years. And then depending on what my income is those years, I will have maybe a little bit more, maybe less than 8,000. But look what I'm doing. I'm getting $95,000 a year of income doing nothing for the next 30 years. Versus having just got that big lump sum of 1.6. Sherry asked, what happens if, well, at year 8, they decide to sell the loan? Refinance with Joe. Well, number one, I did it at 5%, less than what she could probably get right now. So very likely they're not going to refinance. If they do refinance, I will put a first right of refusal into that mortgage, where I have the first right of refusal to buy the mortgage back. And typically I buy it back at a discount.
Okay, so you can do it all over
Make
again.
more money.
So again, creating mortgages requires a professional team, that's on the next screen, to make sure that it is compliant with Dodd-Frank. Oh, and I didn't even tell you, that's your third, no, it's your fourth, actually. I'm giving you 4 tax deferring tactics. So you become the bank and hold mortgage notes straight out of tax liability. It doesn't take it away, it just spreads it out over time. And a lot of times, you know, in 5 years, 10 years, Randy and I don't want to get that call at midnight about a toilet either. So this is our exit plan.
That's our exit plan for
So,
rentals. That's exactly what we do.
no, there you go. In a nutshell, yeah.
But you do want to make sure that when you use a professional team to do this, it has to be Dodd-Frank compliant. Or you will be in trouble with the government.
Let me see, I have seen contracts come through, purchase and sales agreements, and they want the seller to finance over 10 years, X% interest, and it is so vague that anything can happen with that note. So we want to make sure that if you go this route, do not just do it with some vague language. in a
There's
sales
companies
contract.
call the underwriter. They will go in and make sure that it's Dodd-Frank compliant. Set up, the person is actually legally allowed to buy that.
They
loan.
go through the same
So things-
application process, just like Joe's company with you.
And then you make sure this with someone like FCI. I'm with SN on one of my loans right now. But different one of these people that actually service the loan, you're not servicing it. They collect the payments, they do everything. So if you're gonna go this route, it is a really nice way to spread your taxes out, but you make sure you do it the correct way.
And every investor is in a different spot, so we need to talk about it individually about anything we have questions about. Yep. So,
I have 2 things, Sherry. One is, if you're doing the 1041,
31.
I knew that. The 10 I'm
There's
elevated.
too many numbers.
If you're doing the 1031, and you have 45 days to identify your property, and you get into it and something happens and that falls through, what are your options?
If you can't identify a property really quick, you will pay taxes on that money.
Okay,
You can talk to the exchange company and see, because sometimes with different scenarios that are going on, floods and tornadoes, and there have been some leniency on that. Yep, go ahead, Trevor.
okay. Second thing is, I've done 1031 exchanges. I can do them, but Sherry is the expert. It's very complex. And if I had someone that came to me and it looked like it was not a simple thing, I would refer to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and a lot of it depends on who, including your exchange company too. I'm just the realtor. I'm putting the clauses in the contract to make sure that we have the time and our sellers and buyers work together on that. But the exchange company is very key, and you need to make sure it's a very qualified and reputable exchange company working.
Done some 1031 exchange, and only said one time extension, and the guy who's working 1031 IPX, he's out of Nashville.
Yep.
Joker, he had a heart attack. Because he was surprised by the extension. So it was
Yeah,
rare,
it is, you're pretty much gonna pay taxes on it.
and he said the only reason is the person we were buying from, that's why we got the transaction.
Right.
So they get us an exchange.
Lynn, you have a question?
Oh, yeah, if you do the right thing and you put your properties in your estate, can you do the long-term spread out, so your beneficiary, the
Yes.
kids,
Yes.
will just continue?
I know you can in a trust, so.
And that's where ours are, they're in
Yeah.
our trust.
You bet they are.
Here's never made a trust.
Do you have an idea what the fees are for like FCI to manage that or create that?
Every
thing?
company's gonna have a few different fees, and I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you offhand, it's gonna be based on sales price, and
But it's still worth it.
yes, oh, absolutely. It's not 15 or 40%.
Yeah, I didn't have any
Right.
framework to understand, okay.
Once I'm done with $3 a month.
Mhm. Yeah, they're not.
So,
Are you talking about the loan servicing fee?
Yeah, the FCI lender service.
That's about $35 a month.
Okay,
Sorry.
And you
I'm
usually
still-
charge that to the person getting the loan, you don't pay it.
I'm sorry, you
You,
paid,
you have the person
oh,
going the
you,
loan, they pay for
they
that
pay that
monthly,
fee.
not you.
okay, all right.
Yeah, what type of trust, you mentioned trust, what type of trust is it?
We just have a trust, everything's in a
Is it
trust.
revocable,
It's
irrevocable?
It's
a
Revocable.
private-
irrevocable
in
right
this
now,
point.
becomes,
What is-
no, it's
It's
revocable
revocable.
right now, becomes irrevocable.
You ever done a rental charge?
Talk to your attorney on that, and he'll advise
Do you have a herd of cows you ready to? You mentioned selling
you. No,
cows.
I don't have cows,
You don't have cows?
and I cannot roll my real estate into cows either. Thank you, guys.
So Sherry, if you had a property, before you did a 1031, would you try to sell it with the FCI like strategy? And then is that in your?
No, we need to talk.
Okay.
It's an exit plan.